Thank you very much. So, welcome everybody, and welcome to the AI panel. And AI is a big buzzword these days, and you know, a lot of hear AI and think AI, but what is really AI? And let me tell you a little story about AI. And there's Sasha walking on stage at a fashionably late style. Welcome. Let me tell you a little story about what AI is. So I flew in from Israel last night. I arrived at midnight, after midnight. By the way, by the time I was you know, in the hotel, it was about 1:30, and I put my alarm clock for 7 so that I'm here on time. But my phone was still in Israel time. So right before I went to sleep, my phone said, "Are you sure you want it at 7? Because that's actually 8, and that would be too late for you. So why don't you move your clock back towards Moscow time, so 7 is 7. And that's why I'm here on time today. So that's AI for you, okay? Because knowing that I am moved from Israel time zone to Moscow time zone, that's AI. Comparing what we were 20 years ago, you know, when we read news on the paper newspaper and listened to news on the radio or maybe an internet site, you know, AI brings, we're doing everything from the cell phone, and AI is really the next technological shift. And I have with me here a few renowned executives from the industry who will tell us a little bit about what AI is, where it'll take us, and how you can start with it. So maybe we'll start with a short 1-minute pitch, even less, of each one of us. So, Yuri Melinchek, now I'm gonna do the name thing. Yuri Melinchek, Managing Partner, Bulba Ventures, serial entrepreneur and engineer. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. Can you hear? Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear that you can hear me. So, yeah, I was working as a software engineer half of my life, and at some point I decided that enough. I always wanted to do business as well, and so I left Google and I created my own startup, Maps.me. Then it was sold to Mail.ru. And then I was thinking, hey, what to do next? And I thought, well, I always wanted to do some machine learning fun stuff. And that was another company, AI Meta, that was sold to Google last year. And then I started thinking what to do with all the money I've got from the deal, and decided, well, now I'll help another companies with high expertise in machine learning to develop. And that's all ended up with Bulba Ventures. That's it.
And Kiru Waje. Yeah. So, Enkiru is the blockchain strategy deal lead at Dell EMC UK. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you reached this really cool position.
Great. Yeah, so I lead out on blockchain strategy for the UK organization and sit as part of our digital enterprise team. So primarily I focus on solutionizing all the capabilities we have around blockchain across the 7 Dell Technologies companies, and really focus on creating an ecosystem where we work with partners and startups and bringing that solution to market for our clients. So the majority of my day probably consists of evangelizing blockchain from that perspective, but also finding ways to alleviate the challenges that are currently present when we're looking at a blockchain and its application in the enterprise.
Very cool. Thank you. And Alexander Galitsky, how are you? Managing Partner at Almaz Capital. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
It is too short conference to tell everything about myself, but
we have 26 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, but currently I'm managing partner of Almaz Capital, which is a bridge, but it's very useful for, not useful, but typical for Israel. It is a bridge between Israel and Silicon Valley, but it is a bridge between Eastern Europe especially and Silicon Valley, which we run in third funds already. So by this way, it is what I'm doing right now. But in past, I did many stuff in engineering and entrepreneurship, so too much.
He's a space engineer. True?
Yes, it is space satellite engineer, we'll say.
Very nice.
Actually, artificial intelligence, actually, from this time.
So we had artificial intelligence 40 years ago, you say?
In general, artificial intelligence, people dreaming already like more than half of century. So, and some efforts was done like back in this time. If you're speaking about machine learning and other stuff, it is all theory was created like 50 years ago, which people use right now.
So I fully agree with you, because that is exactly the first question I had for you guys, because AI is not new, right? As you say, it was around 50 years ago, even more. So what makes AI special now, and what is so relevant about AI now? Yuri.
Well, it only started working just recently, right? I remember when I was still working at Google, there like the problem of classifying videos as videos with cats and videos with dogs, that seemed impossible. And now that's so trivial that, you know, even like, you know, students and high school pupils can do that. And that technology shift happened within the last several years.
And Sasha, from your perspective from 50 years ago, why is AI relevant now, you think?
No, it is, of course, everything coming with technological achievements, yeah, which just allow you to do something. If you're speaking, many people speaking, for example, about bubble of 2000, but many dreams which people try to do on this time realized right now, yeah. So by this way, people, of course, it was for military usage or for others, some elements of AI was exactly already like 20 years ago, I will say, in many applications. Not so sophisticated, but it was. So right now it just came to public and it has become real. Well, since technology came, scalability, but still too many stuff need to be done.
You know, at Microsoft, the way we look at AI is that we want to democratize AI. I don't know if you guys heard that saying, but it's about really bringing the benefits of AI so that every business and company can use it and empower their product from it. So if we look at AI, you know, you can look at AI if you build an AI type of product, but also an AI capability can enhance a product. So Enkiru, what do you think, how does AI empower or increase the valuation of a product or even the valuation of a company?
Right. I think, you know, when we talk about AI, sometimes, you know, we make it such a buzzword when ultimately what we're talking about is like a huge pool of data, right, that we're now able to far more smartly analyze, but more so that learns by itself. And I think that's really where the value is. It's like, where is the connectivity between like what you understand of your data and how you're leveraging that data in order to, for example, solve a solution either within your product itself or, you know, actually for, let's say, social impact. So I do think that the power within that is really manifested into what we do with the data, not so much as to what technology we employ in order to leverage that data. And AI is just one of those that can really help, whether it's a startup or large organizations, really tease out, you know, as you said, to the example of previously it was identifying a cat and dog. Well, maybe now it's actually, you know, analyzing certain gene pools and really understanding cancer cells and finding solutions to that. So that's really where the power of that is harnessed.
Yeah, I agree that there's something about that connection between data and an eye that can always increase and enhance the model you're building. So Yuri, in the companies that you see, and maybe even that startup that we were discussing about earlier, can you elaborate a little bit more about that connection between data and AI?
Yeah. So we basically only look at the companies that have a core advantage to the competition in machine learning or what's called fancy AI. And but just, you know, by looking broader, I think with the recent advancements in AI, what's happening is that with the humanity, we start operating with the data that was that we were unable to operate before because either limits of our personal brain or because of the limits of the human resources. So to give you two examples of this, one company we've already invested in, they use deep learning to recognize from the satellite imagery, to recognize all the fields in the world and to recognize the crops and vegetation index. So they basically built what Google Maps is for normal people. They built an analog to that they built a website where farmers from all the world, they can look, they can find their field, they can see what's wrong with their field, they can see what their neighbors are doing, and they can download a file to a USB stick and plug that stick then into tractor and use precise agriculture and spend less on fertilizers. And as a product advancement here, what they did is they, like that was all possible before, and a human can look at a field from the satellite imagery or from the drone imagery, and a human can give the same suggestions. But what became possible is to automatically process in real time all the fields in the world and update them on more frequently than on a weekly basis. That's something that was possible before, but with AI we can scale it. And there are numerous other applications of that. For example, security cameras. We can make AI look at the security cameras, and only episodes when the artificial intelligence trigger, only that episodes show to real human operators. And thus we can scale to probably trillions of security cameras worldwide. That's one example where AI helps scaling the data. And the second example where something that wasn't possible before becomes possible. And if you think about, like, you know, the models we built, the models that mathematicians built, the models that, you know, data scientists of the past built, they only can operate the model that one single human can understand. So the limit of the model is limited by the capacity of our brain. But looking at the things like our bodies, for example, they are perhaps more complex than every single human by himself can understand. And then what happens is, by using machine learning, by using artificial intelligence, machines can go further and, for example, like make better diagnosis as radiologists do, or, for example, make, you know, better models of what causes aging and discover drugs that try to, like, prevent aging or delay aging or even revert aging. And the idea here is sometimes these models are so large and so complex that they can't be understood by just a single person.
Sure. Yeah. Very interesting. Kiro, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to your example on the farming bit, because I find that really interesting, as Dell worked with Aero Farms, which is a startup out of the US, which specializes in vertical farming. So that's really, imagine like a big warehouse full of crates that are stacked like this, growing plants, right? Like growing arugula. And why that's fascinating is, one, first of all, they're actually farming indoor, but second of all, it's their pure model on how they're using IoT and AI to analyze exactly, you know, how should those goods be actually farmed. And the analysis of that saves them 95% of water. And we are heading into a world where, you know, there is a massive food crisis and a water crisis on the horizon. So, you know, actually something like that, also to your example of understanding, you know, the human body, that can fundamentally help us, not only because it's a cool technology, but actually it can save money, right? It can drive operational efficiency, and more so, it can actually help us be far more sustainable within our approach.
Yeah, and the fact that it empowers the farmers to produce much more is just amazing. Sasha, when you make investments, how do you see the AI component in terms of, you know, your decision to make an investment and about the valuation of the company?
First of all, AI, it is only part of all technological revolution which is going. So to separate AI from other stuff, since you mentioned IoT, for example, or use something, it is completely like will be strange. So you need to see on AI tools, which is separate like any tools, and you need to see on business model where you use AI. So we approach it from these two sides. First of all, you also need to understand that big giants like Microsoft and others, they build in platform. So you told democratization, which is not good to use in this possibly country, since we are like very vertical. So we will have one AI on the top. But from point of view in general, few companies will build platform which you will use. Yeah, Watson and others. So the point is what application you can actually create on top of it. And here it depends how you actually feel that world around you. It is sensors and it is IoT devices. It is where coming again, big job. It is related to new middleware which need to be built on this. It has too many tasks. Yeah? So by this way we select, any investor select very simply. We have 5 years investment period in any fund. You look on Gartner, you look on others, you look how stupidly they build something, if you think so, and pick up your area of investment which you believe. So by this way, you take an approach for 5 years and making investments. So, and you pick up the set of technologies. Today it is everybody speaking AI, everybody speaking IoT, everybody speaking about blockchain, everybody speaking about a few others. So, and sometimes it is buzzwords, but mostly it is platform and tools. It is nothing else exists in this world.
And how do you see the regulatory part of AI or challenges that AI faces from the regulatory part, maybe the security part of it?
You know, today technology ahead of society and ahead of government, especially since government usually very slow in many decisions. If you know exactly, in Europe prohibited to have autonomous drive car. So it is regulatory. So you cannot use car in London, you cannot use car in Moscow, even it is Yandex doing this, but it is illegal if you're speaking about this stuff. And everybody is going to US since it is open, yeah, or some other countries in Singapore or somewhere where it is, from regulatory point of view, open. But it is just for cars. But if we started to speak about replacement of labors and everything, it is more need to be done. So by this way, today, the regulatory behind far from AI, I think.
And I know that at Microsoft, at least, our approach to building AI is to build what we call responsible AI. Because when you stop and think about what AI means, there's a lot of ethical questions that go into AI. And I think, and Kiru, we discussed this a little bit. Tell me about how you see it.
Yeah, so actually this has been, funnily, one of the main topics that we've been holding forums on in London, which is really around the ethics of AI. It's a surprising subject matter to talk about when you're a technologist, because now we're finally getting into a space where we need to actually think about the accountability of certain technologies, right? And the potential impact it might have on society. And talking about autonomous vehicles, right, and the regulation around that, I think it is because first of all, a lot of people don't quite understand what AI is, so that already instills fear, because we're thinking about, you know, autonomous robots that will take over the world and kidnap our children. And ultimately, we need to distill exactly what it is and why it matters for us. But ethically speaking, I think there's major concerns about, if you think about autonomous vehicles or smart cities, it's like, who writes the code? And then when the code is written, who distributes it, and who's the owner of that code after it's distributed into cars, and who's held accountable if that code, because it's in the car, runs over a child, you know? Is it the insurance company? Is it the company like Microsoft or so who builds the code? Is it the developer? You know, is it the government, right, who maybe had a failed sensor? So those are all the ethical implications and things that, you know, we still need to figure out. And we are fundamentally at this intersection of technology that it's no longer, oh, look, it's just a computer. No, it's a computer that's really smart, and it's a computer that's able to make rapid decisions on behalf of us. But we need to remember that at the core of it, when we talk about ethics and the intersection of security and regulation, is that, well, guess what? A human built that. So we need to do the same reasoning that we do as humans into our technology going forward.
But here's a very important point, that privacy is going on the second level as well. So it is one more, we didn't solve a privacy issue right now in modern world, and imagine what will happen with smart city with our privacy or some other, or we are speaking about health, but how it is going about how it will be realized in the future. It is a lot of question mark right now.
And a lot of things that you need to plan ahead when you build an AI product in order to meet these privacy regulations. I'll give you an example. So I'm from Israel, and we have these cameras in the cities, you know, that are supposed to be for security or whatever. And the city started giving tickets for people who were parking wrong places. And a judge and one of the people took it to court, and the judge said, sorry, you can't use that to give tickets. This is for security reason because you just breached the person's privacy. So these things that we don't think about, and sometimes cities don't think about, and suddenly you have to be very clear about what technology is used for, what decisions it makes, who owns those decisions, and how do we make sure that these decisions are taken for the right purpose. Yuri, you wanted to add something on that?
Well, I think in general, privacy is broken, and our attitude to privacy is broken. And that's because, like, you know, we are basically an old generation. And when we were born and when we were raised in a much different world with, like, the world that was a physical world. And our brain and our cognitive skills were formed at that time. And so we tried to apply the concepts that we learned from the physical world, we try to apply to the, you know, basically world of information. And it just doesn't work. And a much better question would be, for us as a humanity, what should be the privacy rules that would allow us to benefit as a humanity? And then I believe that basically no privacy would benefit the whole humanity more. And like, one example would be security. One example would be if the data for, like, you know, for the diseases, for the aging, would be available, freely available to worldwide, the progress of slowing aging, the progress of developing new drugs would accelerate dramatically. One example is United Kingdom, as a country, they sponsored a large research and they made a data set, UK Biobank, it's very well known in biological research, and they licensed to use these only to British companies or to collaborators of British universities. And that gives an advantage to British companies. And that was, like, you know, 15 years ago when this research was done, when this data set was collected. That was a super smart thing to do for the government. But imagine if that data set would be freely and openly available to all the companies worldwide. That would increase the competition, and then we would see more efficient drugs, we would see cheaper drugs, we would see more human lives saved. So I'm completely sure that our current privacy system is definitely suboptimal for us as a society.
Yeah, but maybe that's also an opportunity.
I agree and not agree, but I will not
ahead.
comment. No. We have not enough time to
No,
speak
go
about
ahead.
the
It's
topic.
becoming interesting.
No, more important
Agree and disagree.
to speak about challenges which we are bringing, since we
Okay.
need to remember that computer is very fast, very accurate, but very stupid. Yeah, and people very slow, very lazy sometimes, not accurate, but very smart. And so all this together, it is sitting in between, like physical world and digital world. We cannot, like, simply to say, oh, we are in new age. No, it is still to go. We, in next 10, 15 years, happens so many stuff that this, what we are sitting right now, world will become for us complete obsolete. It will be completely different world. Since when quantum computing will come in power, so it will be completely different. We need to solve too many problems to have real AI. Since now we have, for example, stuff with bank. It is AI sitting and decide it is good customer or bad customer. And so it is happening in Russia very often when people get into the blacklist and cannot rebuild their story since computer decided that it is a bad list. So from this perspective, it is too many stuff need to be solved. Yeah, so.
Yeah, it brings me also to the thought that a lot of people think that AI will replace us, and actually it's not that it's not supposed to replace us, it's supposed to enhance our work, so to make us be able to focus on the creative and smart things and actually take care of doing the mundane things or the simple, basic things in a more smart way.
I think, one, I agree with both your points. But, when we talk about privacy, yes, it's right, it's broken. But again, it's like I would encourage everybody to take a challenge on and think about the intersectionality of where we are when it comes to emerging technology space, right? AI is only AI on itself. IoT is only IoT in itself. Blockchain, only a blockchain in itself. But think about the three objects combined, especially when it comes to blockchain within the privacy space. Ultimately, if everyone in this room is a network and we all have the same copy of the same information, first of all, the security needs to obviously be enhanced, so encryption helps with that, but also in terms of actually having an assurance and trust layer that enables us to actually transact with each other. So I do think there's currently technologies out there, same with quantum computing, right, that yes are at its early stages, but again, let's not think about the next year, let's think about 10, 20 years ahead, right? This is exponential change, so we can't just think about in silos as to what works now. Sure, there's challenges, but it's more about how can we use the logic that exists within emerging technology and really spearhead that change.
So let's talk a little bit about each of your interests. So maybe you can tell us what investments are you looking at and interested in right now?
No, first of all, we see that it's very popular to use today edge computing, since it is clear that we need to use sensors. Since computer not smart without vision, computer doesn't smart without data, computer doesn't smart with many, and we are not smart too much if we don't have it. So from this perspective, how we get in it, we need to get, it is why like IoT was, how many billions of IoT devices was promised in 2020? We far behind because technology is not ready. And it is one topic. So edge computing can all related to this stuff. It's very interesting for me personally. And we have few investments very interesting right now in this direction. Also, speaking about computer itself, so NVIDIA, great, but can we put NVIDIA on the edge? No. So what's the power? Yeah, so to this very interesting robot will never work for more than 1 hour autonomously if they don't have power and don't have good chip developed. So it is one more area which is pretty interesting. And of course, many other stuff I can.
So I see opportunities here for that layer between privacy and, or the real world and the private world. A lot of chip design ideas here and power on the edge. And Kiru, what are you looking for?
You know what, I would actually remove myself from the technology and stay agnostic and say, listen, to me, it's all about the solutions and the creative, opportunities that are out there, right? We have a lot of challenges in the world, a lot of things that we need to somehow find a way of fixing, or we're probably going to be extinct. So for me, it's really about, what's out there in terms of solutions or really great ideas that we can, as an ecosystem, really collaborate on, whether we're a startup or a big enterprise or an organization that's based on nonprofit. Let's all come together and try to tackle these problems with innovative solutions.
Yeah, I think that's where Dell and Microsoft are aligned around collaboration and partnerships. So
we're a wonderful partnership.
Yeah, we do. Yuri, what are you looking for as investments?
So we're looking for companies that as I said, their main competitive advantage is in machine learning, artificial intelligence, using the data, and they must follow basically the formula made locally, enjoyed globally. So we only look at the companies that benefit people on a global scale. We're not interested at all in companies working for a single market, no matter how large that market would be.
Interesting. So I want to leave you guys with an actionable thought. So maybe each one of you can tell the entrepreneurs in the crowd, if they want to start with AI, where do they start?
To find the problem, first of all, yes, so where they can use AI. So if they are not developer of some technology, so it is very simple. You need to look always for problem.
Problem.
unfortunately, I just need to agree with that, and that was the point I was going to make. But I guess to carry on from that, if you have a problem and you're wondering how you can actually get data, you'd be surprised how many organizations out there have vast amounts of data and have no clue how to tackle it and work with it. So find a partner that actually is willing to freely give you that data to work on, and that can be a massive spearhead. There's a startup out of London, Behavox, that's exactly did that in terms of rogue trading in capital markets.
I have a solution for this. Just move to China, since I spoke with many Chinese who told we have so much data, but we don't know what to do with it.
No, it's true. I mean, the amount of data out there and the fact that companies don't know what to do with it is just a huge, huge opportunity for entrepreneurs. I fully agree.
Another way of thinking to find proper problem to solve is suppose something that can be solved by a non-highly qualified human if you have billions of them. And basically the level of AI now is roughly at the same level as of them, like a human without high education. So if your problem can be solved by a human, then with AI you can scale it on the global level.
Very interesting. And on a perfect timing, we're perfectly on time. Thank you very much for the panelists for the very interesting discussion. And I hope you all got a couple of ideas in your next startup. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruthy.
Thank you.